As I'm talking on mute. Look at that. Look at that. Um, I looked at the mic, but I didn't look at my setting on the screen. I just decided that we'll go over the debate tonight. Why not? And so, yeah, let's do it. I have it up here. They're talking, it looks at the moment, but let's pull it up real quick.
Rebuttal at the moderator's discretion. You will all see the timing lights that will indicate when time is up and it's time to stop talking.
There we go. I see people showing up.
And the time we
now.
have is critical over the next 2 hours, so
There
we
we go,
ask the
everybody.
audience to please keep
Who's
your
in here?
applause to a
Looks like
minimum.
we're getting some people.
All right, with that, let's get started. On stage tonight, 4 candidates, all vying to become their party's nominee. And given the state of affairs in our political system right now, one of you might very well do it. Even many Democrats now admit that President Biden
Let's call it in the
is
chat
a
right
weak
now
candidate.
with
Just
the
as
people that we
many
have watching
Republicans
so far.
acknowledge that former
Who
President
do you
Donald
look
Trump's
forward to
multiple
hearing from
legal
tonight?
troubles could imperil his quest for a second term, all of which means one of you could wind up the leader of the free world. Having said that, Mr. Trump is nearly 50 points ahead of all of you in the national polls, 29 points ahead in Iowa, where the GOP caucuses are less than 6 weeks away. And so, as Republicans get ready to vote on whether any of you might be preferable to Mr. Trump, we begin with the question of electability. Governor DeSantis, your campaign and its super PAC have spent the most money, had the most high net worth donors, and had a wave of momentum coming into this race.
This is going to be interesting.
Big re-election win in Florida. You were seen by many as the candidate most likely to consolidate the non-Trump field. But here we are, a month out from the first real votes, and you haven't managed to do it. In fact, Nikki Haley is beating you in New Hampshire and South Carolina now, and closing in on you in Iowa. Not to mention Trump, who is not only dominating in the early states, but is beating you in Florida by over 30 points. Is it fair to say, as Senator Tim Scott did when he dropped out, that voters are telling you, not no, but not now?
So we have a great idea in America that the voters actually make these decisions, not pundits or pollsters. I'm sick of hearing about these polls because I remember those polls in November of 2022. They said there was going to be a big red wave. It was going to be monumental, and that crashed and burned. The one place it didn't crash and burn was in the state of Florida. They weren't predicting that I would win the way I did, and I won the greatest Republican victory in the history of the state of Florida. I'm looking forward to Iowa and New Hampshire. The voters are going to be able to speak, and we're going to earn this nomination. And here's what we need. I am sick of Republicans who are not willing to stand up and fight back against what the left is doing to this country. You've got to be willing to stand strong, and you've got to be willing to beat these people. I'm the only one running for president that has beaten these people on issue after issue. We beat the teachers' unions when we did school choice. We beat Fauci on COVID. We beat George Soros when we removed 2 of his radical district attorneys. We beat the Democrats on election integrity. I have delivered results. That's what we need for this country. And you have other candidates up here like Nikki Haley. She caves anytime the left comes after her, anytime the media comes after her. I did a bill in Florida to stop the gender mutilation of minors. It's child abuse and it's wrong. She opposes that bill. She thinks it's fine and the law shouldn't get involved with it. If you're not willing to stand up for the kids, if you're not willing to stand up and say that it is wrong to mutilate these kids, then you're not going to fight for the people back home. I will fight for you and I will win for you.
Ambassador Haley, you left government service in 2018 with just $100,000 in the bank. 5 years later, you're reportedly worth $8 million, thanks to lucrative corporate speeches and board memberships like you had with Boeing. Weeks ago, you met with Wall Street heavyweights, including leaders from JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and BlackRock. Several other billionaire investors are reportedly ready to endorse you, or recently have, all of which comes with expectations. Aren't you too tight with the banks and the billionaires to win over the GOP's working class base, which mostly wants to break the system, not elect someone beholden to it?
Well, thank you. It's great to be here. First I'll tell you, just to respond to Ron, he continues to lie about my record. I actually said his Don't Say Gay bill didn't go far enough because it only talked about gender until the 3rd grade. And I said it shouldn't be done at all, that's for parents to talk about. It shouldn't be talked about with schools. In reference to donors coming on board, look, we will take support from anybody we can take support from, but I have been a conservative fighter all my life. I was a Tea Party candidate when I became governor. We opposed every single corporate bailout we possibly could. We passed tort reform. We passed one of the toughest illegal immigration laws in the country. We passed pro-life bills. We moved in unemployment from 11% to 3%. We took on the unions and we took on Obama when it came to the unions, the Syrian refugees, and everything in between. And so I've had a fight. And so as much as Ron says that, that's not true. But when it comes to these corporate people that want to suddenly support us, we'll take it. But I don't ask them what their policies are. They ask me what my policies are. And I tell them what it is. Sometimes they agree with me, sometimes they don't. Some don't like how tough I am on China. Some don't like the fact that I've signed pro-life bills. Some don't like the fact that I may oppose corporate bailouts. That doesn't matter. That's who I am. And that's why the most conservative grassroots group in the country, Americans for Prosperity, endorsed me last week.
Well, because he didn't respond to the criticism. It wasn't about the Parents' Rights and Education bill. It was about prohibiting sex change operations on minors. They do puberty blockers. These are irreversible. Talk to Chloe Cole. She went through this. Now she's an adult. She's warning against it. She may never be able to have kids again. That is what Nikki Haley opposed. She said the law shouldn't get involved in that. And I just ask you, if you're somebody that's going to be the president of the United States and you can't stand up against child abuse, how are you going to be able to stand up for anything? That is the truth. We have it on video.
I said that if you have to be 18 to get a tattoo, you should have to be 18 to have anything done to change your gender.
You said the law should stay out of it.
She did say the law should stay out of it.
In more detail later. Let's finish with electability, but trust me, we're coming back to this issue. Mr. Ramaswamy, for months, you campaigned as a unifier. Then you stood up at the first debate and attacked all of your competitors as bought and paid for. The second debate, you changed your tune, saying, these are good people on this stage, admitting you can come across as a bit of a know-it-all and rejecting the practice of personal insults. By debate number 3, you called Nikki Haley corrupt, accused Ron DeSantis of wearing high heels, and told Ambassador Haley she should keep a closer eye on her daughter. Can you see how this has led some to conclude you are not, in fact, a unifier, and to question your authenticity?
Megyn, I think there's a time and place for everything. We need somebody in the White House who absolutely is going to be a fighter when it counts. And I did say that there were some good people on that stage in that third debate. Doug Burgum was on that stage at that time. And I'll say that jokingly. Ron DeSantis is a good person, too. I want to go back, though, to Nikki Haley's comment from earlier that she is somehow not responding to the will of these donors. Nikki, you were bankrupt when you left the UN. After you left the UN, you became a military contractor. You actually started joining service on the board of Boeing, whose back you scratched for a very long time, and then gave foreign multinational speeches like Hillary Clinton is. And now you're a multimillionaire. That math does not add up. It adds up to the fact that you are corrupt. And when I said they were bought and paid for, I meant the Republican establishment, not the Democratic establishment. Now you have Reid Hoffman, the person who's effectively George Soros Jr., funding lawsuits across this country against Donald Trump to keep him off the ballot, funding left-wing causes. We discovered this week that he is one of Nikki Haley's largest supporters. Larry Fink, the king of the woke industrial complex, the ESG movement, the CEO of BlackRock, the most powerful company in the world, now supporting Nikki Haley. And to say that doesn't affect her is false, because it's after that meeting later that day that she says that every American needs to be doxxed by having their ID, their government-issued ID, tied to what they say on the internet. So I think that this is far more corrupt than I even imagined when I entered politics. But I will say this. It is going to take a leader from the outside with fresh legs from the next generation to unite this country. Not the broken politicians who are puppets of the puppet masters, but the actual people in this country. Thomas Jefferson was 33 when he wrote the Declaration of Independence. I think it's going to take somebody whose best days in life are still ahead to see a country whose best days are ahead of itself. And I think I can reach that next generation better than anybody else in this race.
Thank you. Response.
Megan. First of all, we weren't bankrupt when I left the UN. We're people of service. My husband is in the military, and I served our country as UN ambassador and governor. It may be bankrupt to him, but it certainly wasn't bankrupt to us. Secondly, I did serve on the board of Boeing. I did a lot of work with Boeing when I was governor. They were a great partner to me. I served for 10 months. And then when they decided after COVID that they wanted to go for a corporate bailout, I've never supported corporate bailout, so I respectfully stepped back and got off the board. I love Boeing. They build good commercial airplanes. They build airplanes for our Air Force. I am proud of them. They employ a lot of people in South Carolina, but that's why I left the Boeing board. There's nothing to what he's saying. And in terms of these donors that are supporting me, they're just jealous. They wish that they were supporting them, but I'm not going to sit there and deny.
Let me get the governor in and then I'll go.
So, and Vivek, he wrote a book talking about ESG and these woke corporations and BlackRock. The idea that I want to do that in Florida, they were managing our part of our pension. And then when they did the ESG, I took $2 billion away from BlackRock. We took action. This ESG, they call it environment, social governance. And again, Nikki is meeting with all these people. They want to use economic power to impose a left-wing agenda on this country. They want basically to change society without having to go through the constitutional process. We've kneecapped it in the state of Florida. The next president of the United States needs to be able to go to that office on day one and end ESG. And the fact of the matter is, we know from her history, Nikki will cave to those big donors when it counts. And that is not acceptable.
I did write that book, Ron, and the irony is Nikki Haley was heaping praise on me when I wrote that book, but now I worry. I was warning about the woke industrial complex in this country as a warning. Apparently, she read it as a how-to manual, just like she reads George Orwell's books as well. And so I think that that's actually far more dangerous than, this is really important for people to understand. We're marching towards fascism under Biden. Jack Smith has subpoenaed every last retweet that someone has issued from Donald Trump in the year 2020. The only person more fascist than the Biden regime now is Nikki Haley, who thinks the government should identify every one of those individuals with an ID. That is not freedom. That is fascism. And she should come nowhere near the levers of power, let alone the White House.
I've got to get to Governor Christie. I haven't forgotten about you,
No, but can I just say,
can you speak?
I really appreciate it.
How you doing, sir?
Good to see you.
Can you please speak to the requirement that you said that every anonymous internet user needs to out themselves? They're both hitting you on it.
I would be happy to, and I love all the attention, fellas. Thank you for that.
Yeah, we know she likes the attention.
I'll say this. What I said was that social media companies need to show us their algorithms. I also said there are millions of bots on social media right now. They're foreign, they're Chinese, they're Iranian. I will always fight for freedom of speech for Americans. We do not need freedom of speech for Russians and Iranians and Hamas. We need social media companies to go and fight back on all of these bots that are happening. That's what I said. As a mom, do I think that social media would be more civil if we went and had people's names next to that? Yes, I do think that, because I think we've got too much cyberbullying. I think we've got child pornography and all of those things. But having said that, I never said government should go and require anyone.
Yes, you did. You required a verified account.
In the United States, her first day in office, she said, one of the first things I'm going to do.
I said we were going to get the millions of bots.
She wants government ID to dox every American.
That's what she said. You can roll the tape. She said, I want your name. And that was going to be one of the first things she did in office. And then she got real serious blowback, and understandably so, because it'd be a massive expansion of government. We have anonymous speech. The Federalist Papers were written with anonymous writers. Jay, Madison, and Hamilton, they went under Publius. It's something that's important, and especially given how conservatives have been
love
attacked.
this, guys.
And
this is going to demolish her.
And they've been canceled. You know the regime would use that to weaponize that against our own people. It was a bad idea, and she should own up to it. Come on, what are you doing here?
15 seconds, and then there is the governor, former governor of New Jersey.
This cracks me up because Ron is so hypocritical, because he actually went and tried to push a law that would stop anonymous people from talking to the press, and went so far to say bloggers should have to register with the state if they're going to write about elected officials. It was in the, check your newspaper. It was absolutely there. I have never said government should
trample on your constitutional rights.
You can come back to it later.
This is more dangerous than the Democrats.
You're lying.
This section's over. Okay. Governor Christie.
Really?
Just
I'm usually not somebody who gets missed, but okay, let's go.
What's happening? Okay, I got you.
Yeah, that's because your
listen, You endorsed
size.
Donald Trump in 2016 and 2020. You gave him an A for his first term. Since then, however, you've turned on him, calling him a liar, a loser, a con man, and someone who cannot win. You've even said that you got into this race just to stop President Trump. His approval rating with Republicans is currently at 81%. Yours is at 25. Your best state is New Hampshire, and even there, 2/3 of GOP voters say they would be angry and disappointed if you won. Respectfully, Governor, you have not stopped Mr. Trump, and voters may wonder how you could possibly become the nominee of a party that does not appear to like you very much.
Yeah. Well, look, Megyn, it's often very difficult to be the only person on the stage who's telling the truth, and the only person who is taking on what needs to be taken on. I look at my watch now. We're 17 minutes into this debate, and except for your little speech in the beginning, we've had these three acting as if the race is between the four of us. The fifth guy, who doesn't have the guts to show up and stand here, he's the one who, as you just put it, is way ahead in the polls. And yet I've got these three guys who are all seemingly to compete with, Voldemort, he who shall not be named. They don't want to talk about it. The fact is that when you go and you say the truth about somebody who is a dictator, a bully, who has taken shots at everybody, whether they've given him great service or not over time, who dares to disagree with him, then I understand why these three are timid to say anything about it. Maybe it's because they have future aspirations. Maybe those future aspirations are now, or maybe they're 4 years from now. But the fact of the matter is the truth needs to be told. And for us to go 17 minutes without discussing the guy who has all those gaudy numbers you talked about is ridiculous. I'm in this race because the truth needs to be spoken. He is unfit. This is a guy who just said this past week that he wants to use the Department of Justice to go after his enemies when he gets in there. I mean, the fact of the matter is he is unfit to be president, and there is no bigger issue in this race, Megyn, than Donald Trump, and those numbers prove it.
Governor Christie, we will be addressing that issue of Donald Trump in just a moment, but I'd like to first get to some questions on Israel. Governor DeSantis, tonight as we speak, the war is back on in Gaza. Israeli tanks are on the move and have surrounded the home of the leader of Hamas. 8 Americans have been held hostage in the tunnels beneath Gaza for 60 days now. American troops and warships in the Middle East are under attack. How far would you go as president to secure the release of those 8 American hostages? And would it include sending American forces into combat?
We have to look out for our people. When there are hostages, Commander-in-Chief, you have to do whatever you can to get them done. But the overall issue with this is this administration is trying to hobble Israel from being able to defend itself. They have a right to eliminate Hamas and win a total and complete victory so that they never have to deal with this again. Hamas wants nothing less than a second Holocaust. They would wipe off every single Jew off the map. They would destroy the state of Israel if we could. Joe Biden will say they support Israel, and then they do nothing but try to kneecap them every step of the way. You should not try to direct their war effort. We should work together with them so that they can bring Hamas to heel. Look, I served in Iraq back in the day. I'm the only one running for president that served in the military. I understand that part of the world. It's not the best part of the world. We do have troops there that Biden is leaving basically as sitting ducks. And you have the Iranians that are attacking these troops, and he's responding with basically pinpricks. If you harm an American service member, you're going to have hell to pay when I'm president. We are not going to let our troops be sitting ducks. We also need to look at what's the underlying problem here. Iran. Biden is doing nothing to bring Iran to account. You got to turn the screws on them. Don't let them have any oil revenue. The money they get, they send to Hamas, they send to Hezbollah, and they foment jihad throughout the Middle East. So Biden has empowered Iran just like he's empowered other adversaries. We stand with Israel. They're our best ally in the Middle East. We have a unique relationship with them, and you will see a strong relationship when I'm the president of the United States.
But would you send American troops?
Elizabeth, look, this is the problem with the first 3 debates. Ron gets asked a question, and he doesn't answer it. Your question was very specific. You said, would you send American troops as commander in chief? And he went on to this minute and 30-second hosanna about his knowledge of the military and what we need to do, and didn't answer your question. Look, when you're president of the United States, you're not going to have a choice whether to answer that question or not. Your generals, your Secretary of Defense, your Secretary of State, your National Security Advisor are going to present plans to you. They're going to look at you and say, do we go or don't we, Mr. President? And you can't give a 90-second speech about your military service, as laudable as it is.
Would you send American troops in to rescue those hostages?
Absolutely. If they had a plan which showed me that we could get them out safely, you're damn right I'd send the American Army in there to get our people home and get them home now. And I'll answer that question directly.
Thank you, Governor Christie.
No.
Mr. Ramaswamy, you have said it was irresponsible for Ambassador Haley to call Hamas's terrorist rampage an attack on America and for her to, quote, rabidly shout, finish them, end quote. The Hamas terror attack left dozens of Americans dead and was the deadliest attack on Jews since the Holocaust. Why wouldn't it be a good thing to finish Hamas?
Finish them was purposefully vague in a discussion that included Iran, which is what I objected to. And I think it's, as U.S. president, you have to be responsible. What happened to Israel was dead wrong. What Hamas did was medieval. It was subhuman. It was immoral. And we have to call that out for what it is on October 7th. But to say that that was an attack on America fails a basic test. I mean, Nick, if you can't tell the difference between where Israel is and the U.S. is on a map, I can have my 3-year-old son show you the difference. That is irresponsible because it has major consequences, because that doesn't leave room for what actually is an attack on America. So I believe I have the strongest pro-Israel position actually on the stage, even though it's a little bit different than the standard GOP talking points. And it is this. The founding vision of Israel, David Ben-Gurion, the George Washington figure of Israel, what did he believe? He believed that we don't want, as Israel, to depend on the fleeting sympathies of the West and have our hands tied. Right. I think Israel has an absolute right to defend itself to the fullest, without the U.S., the UN, or the EU, or anybody else second-guessing their decisions, as the Biden administration, guess what, is now starting to do. I think that's a more deeply pro-Israel position than anybody else, and it keeps the actual lines of accountability clear because it is a pro-American position. And as leader of the United States of America, just as a father of 2 sons, my sole moral duty is to my family. As your next president, my sole moral duty is to you, the people of this country. That's how I'm going to lead. So I'll tell Bibi, you smoke the terrorists on your southern border, you go ahead and we're rooting for you. We're going to smoke the terrorists on our own southern border, and that's how I'm going to lead this country.
But Americans were killed in that attack. Americans were killed in that attack. And so if you looked at this terrorist attack and the number of Americans, this would be one of the top 10 terrorist attacks in American history. So our own people were killed in that attack. And I think it's absolutely appropriate to point that out and to say that we're in this together and we are going to work with Israel so that these people are brought to justice.
I agree with that.
Ambassador Haley, I'm coming to you. Iran is on the threshold of becoming a nuclear state. The Wall Street Journal reported that Iranian military leaders gave the green light for Hamas's attack on Israel. You said in last month's debate that, by contrast to the Biden administration's approach to Iran, you would, quote, punch them once and punch them hard. Were you saying that it's time to bomb Iran?
No, I was not saying it's time to bomb Iran, but I will tell you, I dealt with Iran every day when I was at the United Nations, and they only respond to strength. What they don't respond to is when you weaken the sanctions like they did on Iran that allowed China to send them billions to fill their proxies. What they don't respond to is when you give $6 billion for 5 hostages. That only makes them want more hostages. What they don't respond to is when they do 140 strikes on our men and women in Syria and Iraq, and we do nothing but just some small shots back. You've got to punch them. You've got to punch them hard and let them know that. That's the only way they're going to respond. So the way you do that is you go after their infrastructure in Syria and Iraq where they're hitting our soldiers. That's what you do. And then that's when they'll back off. The problem is you have to see that all of these are related. If you look at the fact Russia was losing that war with Ukraine. Putin had hit rock bottom. They had raised the draft age to 65. He was getting drones and missiles, drones from Iran, missiles from North Korea. And so what happened? When he hit rock bottom, all of a sudden, his other friend, Iran, Hamas goes and invades Israel and butchers those people on Putin's birthday. There is no one happier right now than Putin because all of the attention America had on Ukraine suddenly went to Israel.
Russia.
And that's what they were hoping is going to happen. We need to make sure that we have full clarity that there is a reason, again, that Taiwanese want to help Ukrainians because they know if Ukraine wins, China won't invade Taiwan. There's a reason the Ukrainians want to help Israelis because they know that if Iran wins, Russia wins. These are all connected. But what wins all of that is a strong America, not a weak America.
Yeah, go ahead.
And that's what Joe Biden.
Share wherever you can.
I want to say one thing about the tie to Ukraine, if I may. So foreign policy experience is not the same as foreign policy wisdom. I want everybody at home to note that I was the first person to say we need a reasonable peace deal in Ukraine. Now a lot of the neocons are quietly coming along to that position, with the exceptions of Nikki Haley and Joe Biden, who still support this, what I believe is pointless war in Ukraine. And I think those with foreign policy experience, one thing that Joe Biden and Nikki Haley have in common is that neither of them could even state for you 3 provinces in eastern Ukraine that they want to send our troops to actually fight for.
Right.
Look at that. This is what I want people to understand. These people have, I mean, she has no idea what the hell the names of those provinces are, but she wants to send our sons and daughters and our troops and our military equipment to go fight it. So reject this myth that they've been selling you that somebody had a cup of coffee stint at the UN.
Stop banging those war drums.
Has real foreign
Not our
policy
war.
experience. It takes an outsider to see this through. Look at the blank expression. She doesn't know the names of the provinces that she wants to actually fight for. And there's her puppet masters right there. The donors right there that are playing about the puppet masters.
Hold on. Let me just say something here. You know, his reasonable peace deal in Ukraine, he made it clear. Give them all the land they've already stolen. Promise Putin you'll never put Ukraine in Russia, and then trust Putin not to have a relationship with China. Let me tell you something. That's no reasonable.
That's not my deal. That's not my deal.
Yes,
Chris.
It's exactly what you
I'll
said.
describe my
You do
deal
this
to
at
you.
every debate.
I'll tell you exactly what it is.
Don't interrupt
I'll
me.
tell
I
you
didn't
what it is.
interrupt you. Okay? You
Tell
say
them
this.
about how you
You
want to
do
send our
this.
kids to die.
You
Go
do
for
this
it.
at every debate. You go out on the stump and you say something. All of us see it on video. We confront you on the debate stage. You say you didn't say it, and then you back away.
Big
And
guy's getting jealous of all the attention.
Well, this is
now look.
This is
and here's
nonsense.
something.
This man is spewing. This man is spewing nonsense.
Let me tell you something. This is the fourth debate that you would be voted in the first 20 minutes as the most obnoxious blowhard in America. So shut up for a little while.
I'm gonna respond to that.
I want to say
Your
something.
version
No,
of
I
Let you
want to say,
respond to that. We're going to let you respond to that.
I'll take
Let him
that.
finish.
I want to say something else. We're now 25 minutes into this debate, and he has insulted Nikki Haley's basic intelligence.
Because she doesn't
Not
have any.
Her positions, her basic intelligence. She doesn't know regions. She wouldn't be able to find something on a map that his 3-year-old could find. Look, if you want to disagree on issues, that's fine. And Nikki and I disagree on some issues. But I'll tell you this, I've known her for 12 years, which is longer than he's even started.
Yeah, you're
to vote in
both
the Republican
long-term
primary.
politicians. And you speak out on both sides of your ass.
And while we disagree about some issues and we disagree about who should be president of the United States, what we don't disagree on is this is a smart, accomplished woman, and you should stop insulting
So
her.
I'm going to take this.
Oh, you hurt my friend's feelings.
So first of all, I think we just learned something from Chris Christie. We learned 3 things. We learned 3 things right there. First of all, Chris Christie also doesn't know what provinces in eastern Ukraine he actually wants us to fight for. Chris, your version of foreign policy experience was closing a bridge from New Jersey to New York.
Yeah.
So do everybody a favor, just walk yourself off that stage, enjoy a nice meal, and get the hell out of this race.
Yes.
When it comes to Nick,
Yes.
I think if you're going to actually send your sons and daughters to go die in somebody else's war, you better, excuse me, Chris, I'm speaking, and I'm not done yet.
I haven't heard a time when you aren't
and we're going to be
speaking.
done. So listen up to this, is if these people want to send your sons and daughters to go die in Ukraine, they've been arguing for it for a year. $200 billion of our taxpayer money sent over. Neither of them could even name for you the provinces that they actually want to protect. And this is the people who have been touting their so-called foreign policy experience. It is intellectual fraud. These people are lying to you, the same people who told you about weapons and mass destruction in Iraq to justify that invasion, didn't know the first thing about it, yet they sent thousands of our sons and daughters to go die. The same people who told you the same in Afghanistan, where the Taliban is still in charge 20 years later. $7 trillion of our national debt due to these toxic neocons. You can put lipstick on a Dick Cheney, it is still a fascist neocon.
Thank
and
you,
you
Mr.
gotta see that
Ramaswamy.
today.
Thank you, Mr.
It's Dick Cheney
Ramaswamy.
all over again in this party.
Thank you, Mr. Ramaswamy.
Yes.
15 seconds.
Stop banging those war drums. Stop it.
Name the
Every
provinces.
politician
You could even
needs
name
to
the
stop.
biggest thing about Eastern
Thank you.
Europe.
I think we've had enough of this.
and Crimea.
Think about that.
Let me just.
It's actually Crimea is the wrong
All right,
answer.
all right. The floor is Christie's.
All right. Let me just say this. You know, this is the kind of thing where he talks about experience. You know, I was the U.S. attorney in New Jersey when
That
the
seems
terrorist
likely in my
attacks
mind.
were launched against the United States in 2001. I brought the first two cases in this country against terrorists who tried to attack us again. And I know about the threat of terrorism and bullying in this country and around the world. And at that time, he was learning about the provinces in Ukraine, sitting with his smart-ass mouth at Harvard. That's what was going on. And so the fact of the matter is, and back then he was a Democrat. So, you know, the fact is that all he knows how to do.
Well, you're busy hugging
all
Barack
he knows
Obama
how
getting
to
him elected.
do.
Thank you.
All he knows how to do is insult good people who have committed their lives to public service and not say anything that moves the ball down the field for the United States.
All right.
You
Thank
committed
Governor
yourself
Christie.
to
We're going to
money
take a quick
laundering
break.
like all
Pull things
politicians,
down a
and you're
little
trying to
bit.
pad your
When we
pockets.
come back, we're
That's
going
all
to
you're
tackle
doing.
issues on the southern
I'm going to pull
border.
this down so we're
Back
not
in
watching
2
the
minutes.
commercials, and then we'll talk. All right. I want to know, first question for everybody in the chat. Everybody in the chat, throw a 1 in there if you like when they are going at each other like that on the stage, with factual information and making sure to call out their BS and not just arguing, actually calling out their BS. So throw a 1 if you like it, 2 if you don't. I'm curious. I want to see what you guys think. My opinion, I love it. Because every time you have people just falling in line and just accepting a GOP position, then you are just electing another politician that is not going to fight for you. That is what should be happening. You should have your elected politicians representing you and fighting for you. And I don't see any politician doing that other than Vivek on that stage. DeSantis he doesn't have the ability. I don't know why. He just doesn't have it. And it's so crazy that we have these politicians that they all just are accepting to get in line, and we don't expect more of them. We got to do better. But all in all, when it comes to what was just covered up to this, it's still going on the screen here on the commercial, so I'll pull it back up when it's back. The moderators are not controlling the debate, which is horrible. I think we're going to see this, and I think it's actually going to get potentially worse. And that's where it's not helpful, is if it just starts turning into some major bickering. But hopefully they keep it under control, but do allow the facts to come out. The facts that was dropped from Vivek and DeSantis on Nikki, 100% accurate. Like, Nikki has been saying, like, go and look it up for her social media. She has been saying that she wants verified accounts all across social media. She wants a verified ID to your account for social media, and she was denying it tonight. She was lying. And then Christie coming to her defense, because he is a long-term politician just like she is, been around for a very long time. DeSantis, he's been there, but not nearly as bad and corrupt as those guys are. And that is where they're trying to come in and help each other, because DeSantis and Vivek will wipe the floor with both of them. Even though Nikki is somehow better in the polls. I don't get that. I really don't. Yeah, I think the last debate was actually much better moderated than this one. Let's look at some of your comments. I love the ones, by the way, guys. I see all the ones in here, and this makes me happy. Because this is what we need. We need politicians to want to fight for us and represent us, not cave to the system. Let's look here. Let's see. You hear the truth from Vivek, stuff we wouldn't know otherwise. Well, you should know otherwise, because it's no different than what we've talked on the show at times, a lot of it. But it's just coming out on stage in front of potentially millions of people, which is good. It's just a circus. I see the sheeple grabbing a big handful of popcorn and gulp some. Yeah, but here's the thing, man. We talked about it last night. You said you were not going to vote. So, like, then what's the deal then? Because the bigger thing with that is you have to vote to make sure you don't allow the cheaters to vote on your behalf. Like I said last night, Vivek is polished, but I think he would be a terrible president. I'm curious, Alex. I would like to you to elaborate why he would be terrible. Would you support him as being a VP also? Because I think that's where he's going to end up. Yeah, we already saw that one. Donald, it's way better than Trump Town Hall last night. Yeah, Trump Town Hall, we all knew it was going to be a softball. It's his good friend Hannity, and Hannity is just turning into a joke anyways. Like I posed last night, if Fox News fired Tucker but didn't fire Hannity, there's something weird with that. Christie is a Democrat and doesn't belong there. The way they defend Nikki was exactly like Newsom defending Kamala. Yeah. I disagree. It's your choice to vote or not. It doesn't matter if you don't, because it's a no-show. But you're allowing somebody to put a vote in for you. You're allowing Democrats to vote on your behalf because most people don't check to see if a vote was put in under their name. Pull them back up. They're back.
And the separate issue of fentanyl being smuggled in mostly through legal ports of entry. All year, News Nation has been at the border documenting the crisis. In 2023 alone, Border Patrol encountered a record 2.4 million migrants. All four of you have talked tough. The question now is, how realistic is the talk? So, Governor DeSantis, I'd like to start with you. You have pledged to send the military to the southern border on day one of your administration with orders to shoot, quote, stone cold dead anyone illegally entering with a backpack that you believe contains fentanyl. Critics have called this a shoot first, ask questions later policy that would amount to extrajudicial killing. You are a former military lawyer. Why do you think this idea of yours would be legal?
The drug cartels are invading our country and they are killing our citizens by the tens of thousands every year. We had a situation in Florida. There was an 18-month-old baby that was crawling on the floor of an Airbnb rental. There was fentanyl residue on the carpet and the baby died. Is this acceptable in this country? I know the elites in DC, they don't care. They don't care that fentanyl is ravaging your community. They don't care that illegal aliens are ravaging our community and overwhelming our community. The commander-in-chief not only has a right, you have a responsibility to fight back against these people.
And does that mean shooting first?
It means you're gonna categorize them as foreign terrorist organizations, and we will identify just like we would anywhere. When I was in Iraq, the Al Qaeda wasn't wearing a uniform. You'd see anyone walking down the street, they all had man dresses on. You didn't know if someone had a bomb, an IED attached or not. And so you had to make a judgment based on intelligence, based on positive identification. But we're going to be able to get the intelligence on these cartel people. And here's the thing. If we had a wall across the southern border, which I support, this would not have happened. We need to build a wall across the southern border. I'll get it done, and Mexico is supposed to pay for it. Remember, here's how you do that. I am going to have fees on remittances from foreign workers when they send the money back to foreign countries. We're going to tax it, and we're going to build a wall with that. So yes,
I like that idea.
Had that, but we don't have it. I'm going to build it, but we have to lean in on this problem. I am not going to sit there and allow mothers to lose more kids because of fentanyl overdose. I am not going to sit there and let sex trafficking go unabated or human trafficking go unabated. There's going to be a new sheriff in town, and these drug cartels better buckle up.
Thank you. Ambassador Haley, you have pledged to catch and deport all migrants who are here in this country illegally. But then you said in Londonderry, New Hampshire last month that you will not deport those who are working and paying taxes rather than feeding off the system. Which is it?
So first of all, what I said is all of the 7 or 8 million illegals that have come under Biden's watch absolutely have to go back. We have to stop the incentive of what's bringing them over here in the first place. Biden just gave temporary protective status to 500,000 Venezuelans. That's 500,000 Social Security cards. That's 500,000 driver's licenses. And I know from my time at the United Nations, the first thing they do is pick up the phone and said, we came over, come on over. And that's what sends more. You have to go and deport these people so they know it can't happen again. For those that have been here longer than that, we've got to start seeing who is it, how long have they been here, have they been vetted, have they paid taxes, have they been working, and figure out who else is out there. But what I know is my parents came here legally. They put in the time, they put in the price. They are offended by those that are coming illegally. We can't let them skip the line. But when you talk about fentanyl like you did before, let's look at something else. Yes, I think we should send special operations over and take out the cartels. I think we should do a remain in Mexico policy so they never step foot in U.S. soil in the first place. But look at where fentanyl came from. Let's go to the heart of the matter. It came from China. That's why we need to end all normal trade relations with China until they stop murdering Americans with fentanyl. I promise you, they need our economy. They will immediately stop that. But this is where Trump went wrong. Trump was good on trade, but that's all he was with China, because here he allowed fentanyl to continue to come over. He continued to allow them to he would give them technology that would build up their military and hurt us. He allowed the Chinese infiltration for them to buy up farmland, to put money in our universities, and to continue to do things that were harmful for America. We now have a spy base in Cuba and police stations, and Trump didn't do anything about it.
Thank you.
China, though, I mean, this is rich, because when she was governor of South Carolina, she was the #1 ranked governor of bringing the CCP into her state. She wrote a love letter to the Chinese ambassador saying how great a friend China is. You can look at it. We put it on our website, rondesantis.com. There's also a video of her as governor standing in front of a Chinese flag with a Chinese business saying that she now works for them, talking about this Chinese company. So she's been very weak on China. Now, here's the problem. The rhetoric is different, but her donors, these Wall Street liberal donors, they make money in China. They are not going to let her be tough on China, and she will cave to the donors. She will not stand up for you.
15 seconds, Ambassador.
First of all, he's mad because those Wall Street donors used to support him, and now they support me. The second thing is he has a company, a Chinese company, UGAS, that he just did a rally there last year. They have given you $340,000 in campaign donations between them and their employees. They are tied to the Communist Chinese Party. Jinko Solar is another one. They went and expanded. You gave $2 million in subsidies.
I banned China from buying land in the state of Florida.
The Department of Homeland
ejected the Confucius Institute. Nikki Haley brought Confucius Institutes to the universities in South Carolina.
That is not true.
I ejected them. So I have a record of standing up and do what's right. And here's the thing.
You have a record of lying.
She's trying to say things like that. Even the liberal media groups that usually, if I say the sky is blue, they'll fact check me and say that's wrong. They looked at her charges. They said it was totally false, that they could not find one instance of me recruiting a Chinese business coming to Florida. You know why? Because we never recruited any Chinese businesses to the state of Florida.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Ramaswamy, over the past year, fentanyl has killed more than 75,000 Americans, 1,000 of them right here in Alabama. You have vowed to use the military to, quote, annihilate drug labs inside Mexico, something the president of Mexico said would be a hostile act. But fentanyl can easily be made anywhere, and labs that are shut down can easily and quickly be replaced. Are your tough enforcement policies offering false hope to a country racked by addiction?
To the contrary, I don't think it's going to have to come to that if we deal with the actual demand side problem that we also have in this country. I mean, the easy part is talking about how we're going to use our military to secure the border. I will, and I believe that everybody else wants to do the same thing. But the harder part is dealing with the crisis of purpose.
Why is his mic weird?
Raging across this country like wildfire. And there's a reason why after the opioid crisis, you see fentanyl. And even after we get fentanyl, and we are going to be sure to make sure we do it, this one is worse for many reasons. They're illegally lacing it into pharmaceuticals, so it's more dangerous. But we're deluding ourselves. The real false promise here is thinking that we're going to have dealt with that underlying mental health epidemic in this country by just dealing with the demand side of it. But I want to get back to this issue of the root cause, because a lot of these are coming from labs in Wuhan, China, of all places. Drug materials that are going to the Mexican drug cartels that they're pumping across that southern border like a modern opium war. I think it is going to take a U.S. president that's going to have a very different conversation with Xi Jinping than what Joe Biden just had in California. I will tell Xi Jinping, you will not only not buy land in this country or donate to universities in this country, U.S. businesses won't expand into the Chinese market until they're playing by the same set of rules. And the same country that's putting fentanyl into illegal pharmaceuticals in Mexico, it's no coincidence, is the exact same country that also unleashed hell on the world with the COVID-19 pandemic. We also have to hold them accountable with every financial lever that we have available. That is what it actually means to stand with a spine. And you mark my words, if we're willing to stand with the spine, China will absolutely have to fold because they're in a tougher spot than we are. And then we're back to playing by the same set of rules.
Thank you, Mr. Ramaswamy. Thank you. Let's talk about the economy. Ambassador Haley, homeownership has always been part of the American dream, but it's increasingly
they're composing themselves
Americans.
now. They must have got scolded.
This year, mortgage rates reached 30-year highs. Home prices have risen $190,000 over the past decade. Is this the free market at work? Or should the federal government do something to make homes more affordable?
Well, first of all, I mean, you're exactly right. My daughter just got married, and I saw how hard it was for her and her husband to buy a home. Right now, the average homeowner in America is 49 years old. You've got young people everywhere. That used to be the American dream, and now it's out of reach. But you look at what happened. You first of all look at what the Fed did. The Fed did a terrible job when they allowed all of that money to go through. You saw the Treasury bond rates go up. That affected mortgage rates, that affected automobile rates, that affected insurance rates. And so now we have a high interest rate.
Say it. Say end the Fed. End the Fed.
Builder. The supply issues have continued to be there. That's caused the rate to go up. And then you've got insurances that have gone up. And so what you have is a lot of younger people who, one, can't afford a home, but two, the banks aren't lending them any money. They've made the regulations so hard that they don't want to give loans on mortgages anymore. So what we have to do is we have to open it up. We have to, one, grow our economy so that people have more money in their pockets. We've got to look at the supply chain and make sure that we are funneling that so that builders don't have to sit there and go overseas to find things. And then we need to make sure that we really stop paying down this debt.
All politicians become millionaires, but they never make $1 million in salary.
Any spending bill that doesn't take us back to pre-COVID levels, because our kids are not going to forgive us for all the spending that happened. And as much as everybody wants to talk about how Donald Trump had a good economy, $9 trillion in debt, he did just in 4 years. And we're all paying the price of that, including those mortgage prices.
How much of that was
due to COVID? We're going to come back to President Trump.
Majority of
it. Governor DeSantis, the latest News Nation Decision Desk poll found that inflation tops the worries of American voters. 61% say they're very concerned, and the working class.
Yeah, remind you of 2008.
Economists say this was fueled by a glut of federal spending. The Biden administration has added $6 trillion to the national debt so far, but President Trump wasn't exactly a penny pincher. His administration added $7.8 trillion. Do Republicans, including President Trump, share the blame for inflation? And what concrete steps would a President DeSantis take to help Americans make ends meet?
The borrowing, printing, and spending of money was both parties in Washington, D.C. That's just a fact. These Republicans in Washington have spent. It's driven your prices higher, and it's driven your interest rates to the point where you can't afford. I met a young fella in Iowa. He had graduated college a couple years ago, and he's like, Governor, I don't have a chance. I'm gainfully employed. He's like, I have no chance to afford a home and start a family. That is taking the American dream away from people. So we're going to get the inflation down. We're going to get the interest rates down. We are going to reduce spending, and I will be willing to veto, and I vetoed a lot as governor of Florida, and we'll do that. We're also going to open up all of our domestic energy for production. Lower your gas prices, lower the price of fuel. That's going to help the economy. It also help jobs, and we'll do it. But, you know, another thing that's burdening young people are these student loans. Now, I don't support having a truck driver having to pay a student loan for someone that got a degree in gender studies. That is wrong. We should not have taxpayers do that. What I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to get to the root cause of the problem. These student loans are going to be backed by the universities because they need to have an incentive to produce gainful employment for people. They should not be indulging in ideological studies. They should be focusing on things that work. And we're going to take some of this money and we're going to move it to actual vocational training. In Florida, we doubled apprenticeships. We have more truck drivers. These are in-demand skills. Don't let anybody tell you that the only way you can be successful is through a 4-year brick and ivy degree. That's one way you can be. It's not the only way, and we're going to fix that problem in the United States of America.
Mr. Ramaswamy, you praised cryptocurrency like Bitcoin as an opt-out from our, quote, broken financial architecture, and you oppose efforts to regulate it. The head of the largest international crypto exchange just pleaded guilty to allowing his platform to launder money for terrorists, including Hamas. You say your cryptocurrency plan will, quote, ensure economic freedom for Americans, end quote. Won't it also ensure economic freedom for fraudsters, criminals, and terrorists?
Look, fraudsters, criminals, and terrorists have been defrauding people for a long time. Our regulations need to catch up with the current moment. The fact that SBF was able to do what he did at FTX shows that whatever they have as the current framework isn't working. And I think it is nothing short of embarrassing that Gary Gensler, the current leader of the SEC, in front of Congress, could not even say whether Ethereum counted as a regulated security or not. And so I think that this is just another example of the administrative state gone too far. Here's the dirty little secret in American politics today. The people who we elect to run the government are not the ones who are even actually that are writing regulations that Congress never gave them the authority to write. And the good news is a U.S. president can absolutely fix that. That takes a U.S. president with a spine. So what I've said is in my administration, by the end of year one, we will have a 75% reduction in the number of federal bureaucrats. We will shut down government agencies that
shut down the alphabet agencies.
We will rescind any regulation that fails the test of West Virginia versus EPA, which is the most important Supreme Court case of our lifetime, that said if Congress didn't delegate that to an administrative agency, then it's unconstitutional. These are seismic changes. These are big changes that the next president can deliver without asking Congress for permission or for forgiveness. And I want people to understand that distinction, because people have been sold myths by politicians for a long time saying, I'm going to work with Congress to do this or that. Much of what you've heard on the stage from the other politicians fit that description. They need Congress. The things that I'm promising you, this is what the leader of the executive branch gets to do under Article 2 of the Constitution.
Thank you, sir.
Cut down the bureaucracy. That's how we grow our economy and put the Federal Reserve in its place. This is part of the crypto discussion.
No.
90% headcount reduction at the Fed.
You're out of time. 15 seconds, Governor DeSantis.
So one of the dangers that we're going to face, Biden wants, is a central bank digital currency. They want to get rid of cash, crypto. They want to force you to do that. They'll take away your privacy. They will absolutely regulate your purchases. On day one as president, we take the idea of central bank digital currency and we throw it in the trash can. It'll be dead on arrival.
I agree with that.
Gotta go to break. Gotta get a break. I have a whole second hour to get to. It's exciting. And when we come back, we got a big subject. Huge, you might even say. Donald Trump.
Huge. Huge. All right. So that part was good. It seemed like they really got chewed out in the last break. So they kind of dialed it back. I still want them to be calling each other out, though. They kind of went soft, including Vivek. One of the things that I pointed out not early on, but like 10 minutes ago, Vivek's mic changed. That stands out to me because I'm a big Ron Paul fan, as some of you know. And Ron Paul has found, like over the years of him being in different debates for presidential elections, there was manipulation of his microphone and the tuning of it to make him sound different so he wasn't as engaging. Are they doing the same thing for Vivek? That's what question I pose. Are they doing that to Vivek because he carries so much presence on that stage? To the other topics, I think they all killed it, other than like Nikki's answer was, but all DeSantis did was piggyback on what Vivek said by yelling out CBDC, getting rid of it. Good, it needs to go. We don't I'm okay if there's an opt-in option to do it, but there should be no forced digital currency. Not at all. If we want an elective one, but it will never be forced. I'm okay with that, but I don't trust our government to ever do that. So I'm not okay with a digital currency for our country. If we want to have digital currencies to put our money in outside with risk, like into Bitcoin and the FTX and do all of that, there's risk with that. So if you want to do it, that's your choice with your money. But the government should not be I don't want government regulating it. I do not like any more government regulation than what we currently have. We need to have less. He cut out a few times. That was actually the internet. I don't know if it's my internet. You would have saw me kind of flinch and stuff, but I don't know if it was mine or the feed itself. But his mic changed. His mic is very flat now, which is what's interesting. I thought I heard that too. I wasn't sure what happened. Yeah, we'll see. What do you guys think of so far? What is going on in the debates? Do you guys like this change since the last break, that they're not going after each other or they're not calling each other out? They're just straight up answering the questions. And I'm okay with it as long as they're really giving factual information, but I still want them calling each other out on their lies. That still has to happen. So throw it in the chat. One, if you want them to go back to what it was pre-first break. Two, if you're good with the way it went. Then, next question I want to hear from you guys. What question do you want to see answered? I'm curious. In the chat, what question would you guys want to see answered? And then maybe I can guesstimate on how they would answer that question. USA Inc. Make sure they have their thumb in all who get a check from them. Absolutely. Absolutely. That was one of the big things with the China virus checks. Like that, you got the money, and they know you got the money. They know you got that money, and then they were going to chase it down and see what you spent it on. I spent mine on guns. No better way to spend taxpayer money than on guns. When can we see justice? That's one of the biggest problems. Is a lot of our Supreme Court across the country, in states and federal, they're appointed. So that means you have to remove bad people from Congress and your representatives, and then they eventually have to appoint somebody else. It takes a long time for justice to really change. Hopefully we get something with all of this stuff with the oversight committee with the House. And this next week that Mike Johnson committed to voting on impeaching Biden or just moving forward with the details. Here, they're back. Let's bring it up.
As Governor Christie pointed out, and less so for most of you, on the front runner in this race, Donald Trump. We invited him to come tonight, as you know, but he declined to come. But we'd like to ask you a couple questions about him.
I think at this point they should be dumping on Trump. I think Trump should be showing up.
Promised, if he's reelected, to bring back and expand his program restricting immigration from Muslim countries. Here he is in Iowa on October 16th.
No longer will we allow dangerous lunatics, haters, bigots, and maniacs to get residency in our country. We're not going to let them stay here. If you empathize with radical Islamic terrorists and extremists, you're disqualified. You're just disqualified.
Ambassador Haley, do you support President Trump's plan for ideological screening?
Well, I don't think that you have a straight up Muslim ban as much as you look at the countries that have terrorist activity that want to hurt Americans. You can ban those people from those countries. That's the way we should look at it, is which countries are a threat to us. You look at what came across the southern border. What worries me the most are those that came from Iran, from Yemen, from Lebanon, those areas where they say death to America. That's where you want to be careful. It's not about a religion. It's about a fact that certain countries are dangerous and are threats to us. A president has one job, and that's to keep Americans safe. And that's what we've got to do, is make sure that we have good national security in that process. And that's the way you should look at it, is where the terrorist threats are, how we're going to deal with it, and what we're doing about it. And the biggest threat we have right now is communist China. But you have to also look at what Iran and Russia are doing as well. And we need to be paying attention to that. That's why we have to focus on things like cyber, on space, on artificial intelligence, and not just the regular things that we've always focused on.
It's not just terrorism, though. That's important. But look what's happened in Europe. You have more anti-Semitism in Germany than at any time since Adolf Hitler. Why? Because they imported mass numbers of people who reject their culture. Europe is committing suicide with the mass migration, and it's illegal and legal. Nikki Haley said the other day there should be no limits on legal immigration, and that corporate CEOs should set the policy on that. There needs to be limits on immigration, and we should not be importing people from cultures that are hostile. So, for example, I said with the Gaza, you had some of the squad wanted to import 300,000 people from the Gaza Strip. I said, no, we're not taking anyone from Gaza because of the anti-Semitism and because they reject American culture. So we've got to get smart about this. We cannot let the United States be like Europe.
So there's lower-hanging fruit here, if I may just hit this point, because it relates to what they just said. There are things that the government can do right now that
notice his mic changed
about amongst the professional politicians in this race.
It's very flat.
All of the illegals who are already here. Here's the answer. There's 287G in the law. That is a provision that already allows ICE agents to deputize or allow local law enforcement to enforce those ICE warrants. And it shocks me that nobody in the Republican Party is talking about it, because there are 1 million then officials, law enforcement officials in this country. And against that backdrop, we absolutely have the ability to deport anybody who's in this country illegally.
Thank you,
we
Mr.
need to be talking about
Ramaswamy.
more in this country.
Thank you. Governor Christie.
I actually did that as governor of South Carolina.
Governor Christie asked last night in Iowa whether he would be a dictator if he wins a second term in office. Donald Trump quipped, no, quote, except for day one, promising to seal the southern border. He has also pledged to begin the largest deportation operation in American history, saying that migrants are, quote, poisoning the blood of our country. He has pledged to round up and expel an estimated 11 million undocumented immigrants in the United States. What do you make of that plan?
I think it's completely predictable. I mean, look, he's made it very clear. There's no mystery to what he wants to do. He started off his campaign by saying, I am your retribution. 8 years ago, he said, I am your voice. This is an angry, bitter man who now wants to be back as president because he wants to exact retribution on anyone who has disagreed with him, anyone who has tried to hold him to account for his own conduct. And every one of these policies that he's talking about are about pursuing a plan of retribution. And yet, at the first debate, my three colleagues on this stage, when asked if he would be convicted of federal felonies, would they still support him, raise their hand, looked into the camera, and let everybody know that they would still support him, even if convicted of federal felonies. Federal felonies, by the way. Federal felonies which involve our election process, federal felonies which involve the most sensitive of our governmental secrets, federal felonies where he instructed others to commit crimes.
No, he did not.
Now agreeing to go to jail because of what they did in his name. So do I think he was kidding when he said he was a dictator? All you have to do is look at the history. And that's why failing to speak out against him, making excuses for him, pretending that somehow he's a victim, empowers him. You want to know why those poll numbers are where they are? Because folks like these three guys on the stage make it seem like his conduct is acceptable. Let me make it clear.
Yeah, see, that's the stream. Give it a second. Dang it.
His conduct is unacceptable. He's unfit. And be careful of what you're going to get. If you ever got another Donald Trump term, he's letting you know, I am your retribution. He will only be, Elizabeth, he will only be his own retribution. He doesn't care for the American people. It's Donald Trump first.
Oh,
Thank you, Governor Christie.
Oh,
Governor DeSantis.
Shut up.
Governor DeSantis. Thank you. Thank you. Governor DeSantis. Donald Trump would be older on day one of his second presidency than Joe Biden was on day one of his first. You have said Trump is not the same man he was when he ran in 2016. Your campaign is running ads showing Trump confused. And you have said he has, quote, lost the zip on his fastball. You seem to be saying Donald Trump is no longer mentally fit to be president. Is that what you think?
Look, he is showing, Father Time is undefeated. The idea that we're going to put someone up there that's almost 80 and there's going to be no effects from that, we all know that that's not true. And so we have an opportunity to do a next generation of leaders and really be able to move this country forward. We also need a president that can serve 2 terms. I don't think Donald Trump, I think he's going to have I don't think he'd be able to get elected. The Democrats want him to be the nominee. We
You
see that.
idiot.
They are
You're
going to
trying
turn
to back
the
out.
screws the minute if he got the nomination.
But do you think he's
you're going to see
mentally
it.
fit to be
I
president?
think we need to have somebody younger. I think when you get up to 80, I don't think it's a job for that. But let me just respond to some
I
of the
don't
things here.
disagree with
Look,
him,
the
but
media's
Trump,
making a big
I
deal
give
about
an
what he said
exception.
about some of these comments. I would just remind people that is not how he governed. He didn't even fire Dr. Fauci. He didn't fire Christopher Wray. He didn't clean up the swamp. He said he was going to drain it. He did not drain it. He said he was going to build a wall and have Mexico pay for it. We don't have the wall. He did say in 2016 he'd have the largest deportation program in history. He deported less than Barack Obama did when Barack Obama was president. So some of these policies he ran on in 16, I was cheering him on then, but he didn't deliver it. Here's what I can promise people. 100% of the things I promised as governor, I delivered on those promises. I beat the left time and time again, and that's what I'll do for you as president. We got to start winning again as a party. Yes, win the election, but we've got to start getting these issues. I will go in and wreak havoc on this bureaucracy. You will see people fired, and we are going to bring a reckoning for how this government handled COVID-19.
Let Vivek address it.
Now, Chris, you've had your chance to wax eloquent on Donald Trump. You've been doing it all this whole
Why
race.
doesn't he just answer the question? The question was very direct. Is he fit to be president or isn't he?
He is.
The rest of the speech is interesting, but completely non-responsive. And if we were in a courtroom, they'd strike the answer and say, Governor DeSantis.
No, they wouldn't. They would say
you're
that
a smart
Throw
man.
one in the chat.
They would.
No, they wouldn't.
They would strike the answer
Donald Trump
because you're not answering.
be
Is he
president.
fit?
He's not.
You
Is he
have your
fit?
you have
No.
your thing.
Is he
You
fit or
have your
isn't he?
thing.
No, I don't have my thing.
We don't.
He's the thing. Is
We
he
do
fit
not
or
want
isn't
to
he?
do someone
You're
that's
talking
He's
about
rolling.
him being 80 years old.
It doesn't mean
Ron,
that somebody
is he
couldn't
fit?
get elected. That's
Ron,
up to the people to
Governor
decide.
DeSantis,
But
let
I
him
think we have an
finish.
opportunity
Or
to
isn't
do
he?
somebody who's
Governor
in.
DeSantis,
Too
let
far.
him finish.
Ron,
Okay.
is
I
he
think we have an opportunity
Guys,
to do
guys,
somebody
guys,
who
no
is in the
talking
prime
over
of their
each other.
life.
Yes.
You don't have to
No
worry
talking over.
about all
I'm
this stuff with
Ron,
confidence.
Stop.
We can get it
Governor
done.
Christie, stop.
We'll do it.
I'm going to come to you. Finish.
Look, Father Time is undefeated. I don't know how he would score on a test, but I know this.
I agree with you,
We have an
Alex. I do.
opportunity to nominate someone and elect someone for 2 terms who's going to be spitting nails on day one and for 8 years
So you
deliver
do think he's
big
fit?
result.
You
We
do
should
think?
not nominate somebody
He won't
who's,
answer.
who's almost 80 years old.
Okay.
He's afraid to answer.
No, I'm not.
You have to
No.
either you're
I love
afraid or you're
this.
not listening.
No, it's not.
There's a
You
simple
don't wanna
question.
hear the
Is he
answer.
fit?
Because you have-
Is
I
he
know you have
fit?
to then
Hey,
decide
nobody
this.
can hear this.
I get
No one can
that.
hear you. They can't hear you. You finish, and
Look,
then you get it back.
All right. Look, I'm a simple guy. Okay? I hear the
I'm
question.
simple. I just
And
like
I answer.
cheeseburgers and donuts.
Is he fit or isn't he? I'll concede you're fit, Ron. You're a new generation. You're 44 years old. I wish I was still 44 years old. Okay?
45.
So, well, congratulations. I'd still take 45. Is he fit or isn't he? And this is the problem with my 3 colleagues. They're afraid to offend. And
See,
let
I
me
wanna-
tell
I
you
wanna-
something.
I wanna
If
say
you're
this. Chris,
afraid,
Hold on, Mr.
if
Ramaswamy.
you're afraid to offend Donald Trump,
No.
then what are you going to do when you sit across from President Xi, you sit across from the Ayatollah, you sit across from Putin? You have to be willing to offend with the truth
Okay.
and answer the
about
question.
offending.
Fit or unfit?
Okay, listen,
enough about it.
listen.
Fit or
I
unfit?
promised Ron DeSantis a minute and not a full minute.
Oh, come on.
I've got
It is not about.
This has got to stop. I want to hear Vivek wipe the floor with DeSantis and Christie. I see it coming. It's got to be coming. Oh, come on. Really? Really? Hang on. Let's go ahead and refresh this. Let's just see if it comes back up. Oh, man. Don't tell me I got to go find another one. All right, hang on. We're going to pull this down. I'm going to find another source real quick. And we're going to keep going. But overall, like Alex actually made a good point. Let's go back in here. Christie is making a good point that DeSantis is dodging the question. Vivek won't. Well, they're back. They're back. Let's just hang on.
In
for
your
Nikki
book
Haley.
a year ago.
Same thing with Chris Christie as a lobbyist, begging them for COVID money for his special interests in New Jersey, prepping him for the debates last time around. These people are now Monday morning quarterbacking some decision he made. I think the real enemy is not Donald Trump. It's not even Joe Biden. It is the deep state that at least Donald Trump attempted to take on.
Laura.
And if you want somebody who's going to speak truth to power, then vote for somebody who's going to speak the truth to you. Why am I the only person on the stage, at least, who can say that January 6th now does look like it was an inside job? That the government lied to us for 20 years about Saudi Arabia's involvement in 9/11. That the Great Replacement theory is not some grand right-wing conspiracy theory, but a basic statement of the Democratic Party's platform. That the 2020 election was indeed stolen by big tech. That the 2016 election, the one that Trump won for sure, was also one that was stolen from him by the national security establishment that actually put up the Trump-Russia collusion hoax that they knew was false. There's a reason why I'm the only person on the stage who can say these things. That's what it's going to take, not people who are licking his boots one time and now Monday morning quarterbacking and criticizing him when it's convenient.
Governor Kaecey. You do not favor a ban on trans medical treatments for minors, saying it's a parental rights issue. The surgeries done on minors involve cutting off body parts at a time when these kids cannot even legally smoke a cigarette. Kids who go from puberty blockers to cross-sex hormones are at a much greater likelihood of winding up sterile. How is it that you think a parent should be able to okay these surgeries, never mind the sterilization of a child? And aren't you way too out of step on this issue to be the Republican
Who are you
nominee?
talking about, Marla?
No, I'm not. Because Republicans believe in less government, not more. In less involvement with government, not more in government involvement in people's lives. And you know what, Megan? I trust parents. And we're out there saying that we should empower parents in education. We should empower parents to make more decisions about where their kids go to school. I agree. We should empower parents to be teaching the values that they believe in their homes without the government telling them what those values should be. And yet we want to take other parental rights away. I'm sorry. As a father of 4, I believe there is no one who loves my children more than me. There's no one who loves my children more than my wife. There's no one who cares more about their success and health in life than we do. Not some government bureaucrat, not some, you look at these jokers down in Congress. It takes them 3 weeks to pick a speaker. And up until 2 days ago, they couldn't promote somebody in the military in the United States Senate who earned their new rank. And we're going to put my children's health and my decisions in their hands for them to make those decisions, for Joe Biden to make those decisions, for me and for my wife. Let me just say this. This is not something I favor. I think it's a very, very dangerous thing to do. But that's my opinion as a parent, Megan. And I get to make the decisions about my children, not anybody else. And every parent out there who's watching tonight, you start to turn over just a little bit of this authority, the authority they're going to take from you next, you're not going to like. I'll stand up for parents each and every time.
So there are laws banning smoking or drinking by a certain age.
Let me tell you something. I have a follow-up question for him, and you guys are going to get to weigh in. Okay? Here's my follow-up question. You talk about parental rights. Let's talk about them. When you were governor in 2017, you signed a law that required new guidelines for schools dealing with transgender students. Those guidelines required schools to accept a child's preferred gender identity, even if the minor's parents objected.
Not true.
And it said that there is no duty for schools to notify parents if their son or daughter changes their gender identity, allowing this serious issue to remain a secret between the school and a child. How is any of that pro-parental rights?
By the way, that's simply not true.
You're doing what you accuse me of, Chris. It is absolutely true.
That's simply not true. That's simply not true. That
See,
law
that mic
was
is not normal. They tweaked his mic.
And regulated in 2018 after I was out of office,
the
Megan. No, we did not, Megan. We did not issue those guidelines, and you're wrong about that. Simply wrong. I have stood up each and every time.
So I think if this is one issue that's disqualifying, it's this one.
I stood up every single time for parents to be able to make the decisions for their minor children.
But parents,
every single time, parents should make those decisions. And by the way, you know what? Every once in a while, parents are going to make decisions that we disagree with. But the minute you start to take those rights away from parents, you don't know that slippery slope, what rights are going to be taken away next, and what's going to be focused on you.
As a parent, you do not have the right to abuse your kids. This is cutting off their genitals. This is mutilating these minors. These are irreversible procedures And this is something that other countries in Europe, like Sweden, once they started doing it, they saw it did incalculable damage. They've shut it down. I signed legislation in Florida banning the mutilation of minors because it is wrong. We cannot allow this to happen in this country. And I know Chris disagrees with me, and I think he has an honest position. Nikki disagrees with me. She opposes the bill that we did to ban that. She said law shouldn't get involved with it. You said the law shouldn't get involved with it. She also, though, I think, and this flows from what she did as governor of South Carolina, they had a bill to try to say that men shouldn't go into girls' bathrooms. And she killed that bill, and she bragged that she killed that bill. Even to this day, she bragged that. I don't think men should be going into little girls' bathrooms. I think it's wrong, and I think we have every right to protect them from that.
I am going to come to you. I promise him seconds. Go quickly.
I think the North Star here is transgenderism is a mental health disorder. We don't let you smoke a cigarette by the age of 18. We don't let you have an addictive drink of alcohol by the age of 21. And I just challenge Ron DeSantis to go one step further and support what I think is clearly within the authority to do using federal funds, just like Reagan did in '84 for the Highway Act that said the minimum drinking age needs to be 21. We can do the same thing when it comes to banning genital mutilation or chemical castration.
Okay.
I know Ron's been
unclear
at the federal level.
Well
I'm crystal clear. That's where I stand.
Got it.
That's a mental health disorder. That's where we need to be at.
Go ahead.
So first of all, Ron has continued to lie because he's losing.
No, it's not a lie.
You are lying.
You
so
said
first
it on tape.
So first of all, I will say that when I
Nikki's
was
been
governor,
lying all
10
debate.
years ago, when the bathroom situation came up, we had maybe a handful of kids that were dealing with an issue. And I said, we don't need to bring government into this, but boys go into boys' bathrooms, girls go into girls' bathrooms. And if anyone else has an issue, they use a private bathroom. Now, 10 years later, we see that this issue has exploded. And this shows how hypocritical Ron continues to be. When he was running for governor and they asked him about that, he said he didn't think bathroom bills were a good use of his time. You can go look that up.
I signed a bathroom bill in Florida, so
But
that's
you
obviously
no.
not true.
So the idea that you would say that I was
signed
against
it, you
that.
didn't. You killed it, I signed it. I
We
stood up
didn't.
for little girls, you didn't do it. And there was this going on. I was actually just in South Carolina. Some of the legislators told me at the time there were boys going into the girls. That's the
There
whole
were
reason
not.
why they
No,
did
no,
it.
no, no, no.
And so they say when she does that explanation that doesn't hold water. And this is the upstate of South Carolina.
Ron.
I signed the bill. I
Do
protected
you
the
know
girls.
South Carolinians?
She did not do
you
it.
know
I
South
know that.
Carolinians? Because South Carolinians, no. You are not going to talk about my state like that, because I will tell you for a fact, South Carolinians never allowed that to happen, and we did not have that issue at the time. What I have always said is boys go into a boys' bathroom, girls go into a girls' bathroom. But hold on one second. I also say that biological boys shouldn't be playing in girls' sports, and I will do everything I can to stop that because it's the women's issue of our time.
I signed legislation to protect women's sports. I actually get this stuff done.
You got it.
Thank you, guys. We're going to move on. Mr. Ramaswamy, when discussing your Hindu faith in September, you seemed to take a shot at Ambassador Haley, who is also Indian American and who converted to Christianity as an adult. You said, an easy thing for me to do, being a politician, is to shorten my name, profess to be a Christian, and then run. Make Vivek Vicky or whatever, end quote. Are you questioning Nikki Haley's Christian convictions? And why has your campaign made a point of referring to Ambassador Haley by her given first name, Nimarata, even though she's gone by Nikki for her whole life?
Because she doesn't
My
like
whole deal
anybody
is
on the
if Nikki
internet
Haley, of
using
all
fake
people,
names.
should know how to pronounce my name correctly. The rest of the news media can learn it. My deal is I'll call her Nikki when she can say my own name right. That's our little fun side bet there. Here's what I will say is deeper. I don't question her faith, but I question her authenticity. And I think that's deeper here. We were just talking about the trans issue. This is a symptom of a deeper cancer in American life, identity politics. This new religion that says your race, your gender, and your sexuality are your identity. It is anti-American. It is meritocratic. It's anti-meritocratic, and it is dividing this country to a breaking point. And I've spoken about this to the left. My books are all about this. I've preached this to the left, but it's even worse when Republicans try to play the same game. We're talking about that trans issue. And Nikki Haley's campaign launch video sounded like a woke Dylan Mulvaney Bud Light ad talking about how she would kick in heels.
You're wrong, man.
At the first debate, she said that only a woman can get this job done. That's what she said. After the third debate, when I criticized Ronna McDaniel after 5 failed years of leadership of this party and criticized Nikki for her corrupt foreign dealings as a military contractor, she said that I have a woman problem. Nikki, I don't have a woman problem. You have a corruption problem. And I think that that's what people need to know.
All politicians
Nikki is corrupt. This is a woman who will send your kids to die so she can buy a bigger house. This is the problem. Using
that is going to be memes for days.
More effectively than Kamala Harris is a form of intellectual fraud. And it actually needs to end. There's our donor puppet masters wielding their puppet right up here tonight. This is how this game is played. The puppet masters put up their puppet, and I reject the use of identity politics in this party. It has been a cancer coming from the left, and I'm sick and tired of the double standards. The people of this country are too. Having 2 X chromosomes does not immunize you from criticism.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Governor Haley, would you like to respond?
No, it's not worth my time to respond to him.
You've been using identity politics at every step. She knows it's true, and that's why she's actually fighting from it.
Sir, we're not going to give you a response to the question that was to you.
Okay, we got to move on to this. Now, by arrangement with the Republican National Committee, we've got 2 questions for you about the Justice Department and our election system. Here's Tom Fitton with Judicial Watch. Governor Christie, this one's for you.
President Trump and many of his supporters claim federal law enforcement agencies have abused his civil rights for the last 8 years by, among other things, spying on him and now prosecuting him while having treated Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden with kid gloves. A recent Gallup poll shows that Americans think more highly of the U.S. Postal Service than they do the FBI or Justice Department. What would you do as president to restore the faith of the American people in these agencies?
Well, first off, I'm the only person on this stage who's actually done a job in the Department of Justice. I was the U.S. Attorney in New Jersey, in the 5th largest office in this country, appointed by President Bush on September 10th, 2001. And it was an extraordinary time in this country to be on the front lines of fighting the greatest attack against our country since Pearl Harbor. And I'm proud of the 7 years I spent in the Justice Department. And one of the reasons I am is because I had an attorney general when I came in named John Ashcroft. And John Ashcroft stood up and told each and every one of us our job was to do one thing, to make sure justice was done every day, regardless of partisanship, regardless of gender or race or any other consideration. And that's what we did for 7 years. And at a time when our country was at its greatest moment of danger in the last 40 years, we did exactly that. And there was not another domestic terrorist attack on this soil. So what I would do as president, having had that experience, and the only one who's had that experience, is to pick an attorney general who will absolutely do the same thing that John Ashcroft did, to pick U.S. attorneys who will only care about making sure that justice is done without regard to any other consideration but the facts that are presented and whether someone is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt and the government can prove it. We have had attorneys general like Eric
DeSantis and them should be calling him out for not answering.
And Jeff Sessions. And now our current attorney general, who have not met that standard. And the only way you restore people's faith in the justice system is to put someone like that in charge of the Justice Department, and then as president to get the hell out of the way on anything that involves criminal investigations. If a president's involved in trying to do something and put their thumb on the scale, as Donald Trump says he will do, that makes people much less likely to believe our justice system can be fair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Governor DeSantis, next one's for you. Back to Tom Fitton.
Many Republicans are concerned about the legitimacy of elections. A federal judge just ruled that Pennsylvania must count undated mail-in ballots, and unlike Alabama, many states still don't require any identification to vote. What should states do now to increase election integrity and voter confidence for the 2024 election?
Well, Tom, thanks for the question. Thanks for what you guys do at Judicial Watch. It's really, really important. There's a lot of corruption in this government. You guys are doing a great job. What you should do for election integrity is do what we did in Florida. 20 years ago, Florida and elections was a joke. Everybody would laugh at it. I came in, I removed a couple supervisors from South Florida. We require voter ID universal, no Zuckerbucks. no mass mail balloting, and no ballot harvesting. We even have an agency that prosecutes people for violating election laws. The result of that, in both 2020 and 2022, we counted millions and millions of votes on election night, produced the results, it was transparent, and everybody was happy. That is not happening throughout this country. But let me tell you this as the nominee. I think it's important. Not every state's where we need it to be. There is ballot harvesting in places like Nevada, all these places. I am not going to fight with one hand tied behind my back. I'm going to have organizations in all the swing states. If they're harvesting, we're harvesting. If they're Zuckerbucks, we're Zuckerbucks. We are going to exploit whatever the rules are. I favor changing the rules to be like Florida and some of the other states that have done a good job. But until then, we have to do that. And then just on the Justice Department and FBI. I mean, I remember being, in Iraq, working with FBI on the ground and being, and then I was a special assistant. I used to have such a high regard for these agencies. What they did to Donald Trump with the Russia collusion was one of the biggest abuses of power in the history of our country. These agencies need to be cleaned out.
Good for you.
We'll have a new FBI director on day one. We're going to clear out the DOJ, the IRS, all these places. Buckle your seatbelts. There's going to be a new sheriff in town.
Thank you. All right, we got to do a quick break. We're going to come back in 1 minute. China up next.
Okay, I got to show you guys. Let me mute this real quick over here. This is hilarious. Let's go and share. It's kind of funny. Pictures are going around already, of course, of Vivek, but let's share my screen here again. And click share. There we go. Look at that. Someone got a backstage picture. Nikki equals corrupt. I think that's going to be turning into an awesome meme. This is where you're going to start seeing people take this at white page, start putting other text up here, and it's going to go around the internet. You're going to see this turn into a meme. Overnight, it's going to happen. But overall, what do you guys think? Do you guys think this is going well? I actually think since the last break, it started turning around and getting its mojo back. That first break, they probably chewed him out a little much. But I like what they're talking about. They're talking about real things. I like that. It's interesting that DeSantis is supporting Trump so openly and not being vague about it. I wonder if that's recent because DeSantis has been losing a lot of people in his campaign. He's been firing people lately. I wonder if he's realizing his campaign's failing him. DeSantis should have had a lot better campaign running for election for president. He didn't. He's super weak, super weak. And so I wonder if he finally swapped out who's running his campaign and helping him. So we'll see. Maybe DeSantis can climb the ladder a little bit and see what's going on. But one of the topics that keeps coming up, and I know a lot of you guys support Trump and are big Trump fans. I get it. But do you think Trump should be there? I really think at this point, Trump should be there. And if Trump is there, there's no reason for Nikki Haley and there's no reason for Chris Christie to be on that stage. If Trump shows up, he will just wipe everybody out. And it would be down to DeSantis and Vivek, which then Vivek and Trump will wipe the floor with DeSantis. It would just come down to those two. Curious, like, do you guys feel that way? I think he should be there at this point. He should be there. And then he would wipe out the half of the group. I know he's already winning by 50 points. Everybody's like, well, he's already got it. Well, yeah, but he should still show up, show why he's got it, and just wipe the floor with the people on the lower end. Can he with his gag order? Yes, but he can't talk about his court case, and they could specify that beforehand, and Vivek will support him. Vivek will back him up and be like, you can't call him on that. He can't talk on it. So what are you doing? And so he has support on that stage. I think he should be there. Yeah, DeSantis has done good things in Florida. Christie would be foaming at the mouth. Christie would be trying to figure out what to do. He'd be looking for the nearest exit, I think. He really would. All right, I'm just waiting for this to get all caught up here. No, just because of general election for GOP nominee. So you're saying Trump should just be handed the primary. Just handed. Primary election. Just handed it to him. Doesn't even have to show up, do anything. He just gets it handed to him. I think that is playing into corruption. when you start just handing a nominee of a party to somebody and they don't even show up. That is a bad thing to do. A really bad thing to do. Because you set the precedent that that's normal for everybody following. You got to make sure you're holding people accountable. Same like, I don't like what the Democrats are doing. They're shaming everybody. It doesn't matter if he's ahead. He has to show why he's better than these 4 that are up there, and he's not. He has to show up. They're coming back. So here we are. Let's turn it up.
Starting with you, Ambassador Haley. House Republicans yesterday hauled elite university presidents up to Capitol Hill to answer for the displays of anti-Semitism on college campuses. These leaders, including the president of Harvard, were asked whether calling for the genocide of the Jews would violate school policies against harassment and intimidation. All of them said it would depend on the context, including whether that speech veers into conduct. How do you think these schools and the rest of society should balance the imperative of free speech against the need to prevent radical activists from harassing and intimidating others?
It was disgusting to see what happened. You know, if this had been the KKK that was doing protests on those campuses, every one of those college presidents would have been up in arms. This is just as bad. The idea that they would go and allow that kind of pro-Hamas protest or agree with the genocide of Jews and try and say that they needed context on that, there is no context to that. This is what we need to do to deal with it. First of all, we have got to get foreign money out of our universities. You've got Arab money, you've got Chinese money, you've got others. We need to go to every university
that she's
and say
saying
you either
that out
take
of all
foreign
people.
money or you take American money, but the days of taking both are over. The second thing we need to do is Biden made a mistake not including anti-Zionism in the definition of anti-Semitism. If you don't think that Israel has a right to exist, that is anti-Semitic. We will change the definition so that every government, every school has to acknowledge the definition for what it is. The third thing is we really do need to ban TikTok once and for all. And let me tell you why. For every 30 minutes that someone watches TikTok every day,
she stole that from Vivek, by the way. She did not do that until Vivek called her out because of her daughter using TikTok.
We now know that 50% of adults 18 to 25 think that Hamas was warranted in what they did with Israel. That's a problem. When campuses also don't go and protect when they have these rallies and you've got students that are scared, we need to go to these universities and say, if you're not going to protect these students, if you're not going to acknowledge anti-Semitism, we'll take your tax-exempt status away. That'll fix it, and that'll take care of it for good.
Staying with you, Ambassador Haley. On October 6th, the Israeli government thought it had a clear-eyed view of the threat from Hamas. In fact, according to the New York Times, it even had Hamas's attack plan and dismissed it as an aspiration. The Israelis were wrong. In our country, the FBI director told the Senate panel just yesterday that he sees, quote, blinking red lights everywhere, and that the threat level has, quote, gone to a whole nother level since October 7th. Which of the threats facing our country do you worry could blindside us?
What worries me and what keeps me up at night is what happens between now and Election Day while Joe Biden's in office. That's what worries me more than anything else. But I'll tell you that America right now is acting like it's September 10th. We better remember what September 12th felt like, because it only takes one. And whether you're looking at open borders that are allowing people to come in,
been saying it longer than
Iran knows
anybody.
the easiest way to get
like
to America is through the southern border, and we're not doing anything to stop it. We've got to get the foreign infiltration out of our country, whether it's in our schools, whether it's on our social media, whether it's we need to stop all foreign lobbying that's happening to members of Congress, and we need to start securing America again. Until we do that, we are going to be at threats. We've got to look at Iran, China, and Russia want to destroy the West.
I got a video to show you at the end of this.
We've got
you guys will not want to leave until you watch
right
this.
Right now, Americans don't feel protected, and we're not doing anything to strengthen it. So Joe Biden continues to be a problem. That'll change on Election Day.
Governor DeSantis, if China invades Taiwan, would you send American troops, as President Biden has said he would do?
We will be able to deter that from happening. I think that's the important thing. We need a strategy of denial so that we're deterring Xi's ambitions.
What if it doesn't work?
It's going to work. Taiwan's an ally. We have longstanding American policy, and you know how that's done, and we will follow that. But here's the thing. Taiwan is important not just because of semiconductors. It's important because if China is able to break out of this first island chain, they're going to be able to dominate commerce in the entire Indo-Pacific. They will use that to export authoritarianism all around the world, including here in the United States. You look at some of these guys, actually some of them that are supporting Nikki on Wall Street, they grovel to China. Anytime something happens, they got to go do that. So they already exert a huge amount of authority over this country. It will get a lot worse. So deterring China's ambitions is the #1 national security task that I will do as president, and we will succeed. The 21st century needs to be an American century. We cannot let it be a Chinese century.
Mr. Ramaswamy,
I think we need to be
I'm
clear.
coming to you
I'll
next.
be clear on the same issue, if I may.
I'm coming to you next on Taiwan. You said if you want to stop Xi from invading Taiwan, quote, let's open a branch of the NRA in Taiwan and put an AR-15 in the hands of every family and train them how to use it. That will give Xi a taste of American exceptionalism, end quote. The National Police in Taiwan announced a zero-gun policy last year. Is this a serious policy proposal? And if it isn't, why do you keep repeating it?
Well, it's part of a broader deterrence strategy. And so I think I'm going to respectfully disagree with Ron here. I think the next U.S. president needs to be crystal clear that at least for the foreseeable future, the U.S. will absolutely defend Taiwan. And it is with that clarity that we actually achieve deterrence. But I have a broader strategy than that. We need to get on side in our relationship with India, take it to the next level. India has to be able to block the Andaman Sea, which is where China gets most of its Middle Eastern oil supplies. That's critical. I also do believe the Second Amendment is a critical way of preventing foreign autocrats from being able to.
Yes, that's why it's our Second Amendment.
Why wouldn't it work in Taiwan? So it is part of a broader strategy. But I do think that we need to be specific about our deterrence strategy, or else Xi Jinping is just encroaching by the day. And the reason why we're not doing it for China, I want to be crystal clear, is because we're scared. Why are we scared? Because we depend on them for our modern way of life. Why do we depend on them for our modern way of life? It's because Nikki Haley's latest friends like Larry Fink have created commingled economies with BlackRock telling Exxon and Chevron they can't drill here, while being a shareholder of PetroChina, not applying those same constraints in China. So it is our economic dependence on China that makes us scared. If that were a Russian spy balloon, we'd have shot it down in an instant. If that were a Russian spy base in Cuba, we'd be actually going hard on them instead of turning the other way as we are with China. So it comes back down to that economic dependence. We cannot depend on them for our pharmaceuticals, our semiconductors, and people have been lied to for a long time. Our own military, the F-35 jets that we make in this country, depend on China, and it's going to take an outsider to fix that broken establishment.
Thank you, Mr. Ramaswamy. Ambassador Haley, would you like to respond?
I mean, when it comes to China and Taiwan, the one way that we keep China from going into Taiwan is, one, make sure that we win in Ukraine, that we protect our friends, but also let China know that they'll be hell to pay if they go into Taiwan. They need to know that there is going to be a force that's going to go against them. And they need to know it's not just going to be the United States. That is why we need to build our partnerships with India, with South Korea, with Japan, with the Philippines, with Australia. We need to start pulling that alliance together. And the first way we do that is we need to make sure that on day one, we look at the fact, if China pulled the rug out from under us tomorrow, would we be ready? Think about what happened during COVID. Everybody told you to wear a mask. They were made in China. Everybody told you to take a COVID test. They were made in China. Everybody went and, I mean, everything that happened, if you go to the drugstore, all those medicines are made in China. We have to make sure that we are not relying on China for anything related to our national security, which means let's start focusing on doing deals with our friends now.
Thank you, Ambassador. Governor Christie,
funny that she's saying that out of all of them.
Do you think arming every family in Taiwan with an AR-15 is a plausible policy?
You know, I don't think we have constitutional authority over Taiwan to give them a Second Amendment. I think they can only do that for themselves. But look, I want to be really clear. Once again, I want to play the role of actually answering your question, which is if
But you
China
didn't answer the
went
last
after
question.
Taiwan, you're absolutely right. I would, as president, have us go militarily and defend them. Secondly, I'm not afraid, based upon those economic relationships, to do that, because these economic relationships mean nothing. Nothing. If what's going to happen is that China is going to come and act in that region of the world however they see fit. It's not right. And I'll say this about what I heard from Nikki earlier. She said that Donald Trump was good on trade. He wasn't. And the proof that he wasn't good on trade with China is that all he did was impose tariffs, which raised the prices for every American. You want to know what has contributed to inflation in this country? Yes, it's more government spending.
Chinese tariffs.
Yes, it's the fact that we're printing too much money. Absolutely. But it is also the increase in prices that were driven by Donald Trump's tariffs. And one last thing. You can't say he was good on trade because he didn't trade. He didn't change one Chinese policy in the process. He failed on it.
Thank you, Governor Christie. Governor DeSantis.
I don't know about that one.
Here. For 15 years, Republicans have been burned by politicians' promises to repeal Obamacare. Trump repeatedly promised to replace it with, quote, something terrific, but failed to propose anything. You're now promising something better, but Florida has more uninsured people than almost any other state. Why should Americans trust you more than any other Republicans who've disappointed them on this issue?
Well, I think we have millions of Americans who do not have access to affordable health care. And it's not just getting some type of card and Medicaid, because a lot of times they don't even get access to doctors. You actually get access to care. The other thing is we have millions and millions of people who don't have access to good doctors and good hospitals. Florida did not expand Obamacare. I think the states that did that, I think are struggling financially. So that, yes, we declined to do that. And I don't think that that was the right policy to do. But we are going to go after the cost. You're paying too much for everything. We've actually addressed this in Florida in some ways, but you need price transparency. You need to hold the pharmaceuticals accountable. You need to hold big insurance and big government accountable. And we're going to get that done. I think it's very, very important economically. I think it's very, very important for the country that we get that done.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I actually wanted to, this is a very personal issue to our family. I wanted to take actually a minute to recognize my wife who's here today.
That's because I think the industry is actually evolving and changing.
Earlier today, flew here to be
I'll try to remember to come back to that
at 7
after.
a.m. in Columbus, Ohio tomorrow, taking care of those patients in the OR. And on the front lines of people who have actually not swallowed for years. And here's what's something that's awful that's happening in our healthcare system. They'll pay for anything like feeding tubes, doctors to be pill pushers, but for the procedures that can actually make these patients better, we have a broken healthcare system that doesn't pay for it. My wife, Apoorva, in many cases, does not get paid for those procedures. She does them anyway because it's the right thing to do. But that does not work system-wide. So here's the answer. We don't have a healthcare system in this country. We have a sick care system.
Facts.
We need to start having diverse insurance options in a competitive marketplace that cover actual health, preventative medicine, diet, exercise, lifestyle, and otherwise.
Mental health.
Here's how we deliver that. End the antitrust exemptions for health insurance companies. That's where the competitive marketplace begins. That's crony capitalism, and that's the answer.
Okay, through Operation Warp Speed.
I haven't heard that one before.
The Trump administration and private industry developed a COVID vaccine in record time.
What? This feed is driving me nuts. Oh, they went to their. Oh, they just cut right to going. All right. Let me pull this down and mute it. Couple things. I want to show you guys something hilarious. Let's see if I can hurry and find it again. Oh, I tweeted it. Hang on. This is hilarious. You guys need to see this. Come on. So this was back at the break where Vivek was calling out Chris Christie and telling him to go have a nice meal. And this is the break right after it. Look at what Chris Christie, look at his demeanor. And he's just like getting super upset at Megyn Kelly. Look at this. He said I deserve a good meal. Where's my good meal? That is what Chris Christie is saying. Where is my good meal? I'm curious. What do you guys think he's saying here? Joking and serious if you want to. But seriously, it's funny. He was getting all upset at Megyn Kelly during that debate. That is hilarious. Let's see what else. There was also Tim Pool has tweeted out. Like I said, it was going to happen. It was bound to happen. Let me see if I can get to it real quick and I'll share that. I'm going to make a better one. Tim Pool's edited version is kind of weak. But here, so Tim Pool made exactly what I thought. This is going to turn into a meme. You're going to have everybody on that put stuff on that paper, and it's just going to be going around the internet. That's what's going to happen. See, Epstein did not kill himself. Yes. Yes. It's going to start going everywhere. Get Vivrect? Oh, gosh. These are hilarious. I'm keeping an eye on the debate still. But what have you guys liked about this so far? I'm curious. What have you guys liked about this debate? Throw it in the chat. Let's see if there's any other funny ones. While I'm waiting for the chat to catch up. Taxation is theft? Yes. Yes. He looks fierce there, even with his finger pointing. Yes, he did. Like, this is going to be a meme for a while. It is going to be a meme for a while. Boneless wings equals chicken nuggets. Facts. Chris Christie tried to eat me. Oh, Jesus. These are going to be hilarious. I like what Vivek is talking about. He seems to be at least down to the points. Yeah, that's one of the things that I like about him. And I get why people say they're nervous about him because they remind them of Obama. Obama was very well spoken. Oh, geez, this one's funny. I got to share this one real quick. Because Obama was very well spoken. So is he. So of course you can correlate that. And did he steal some of Obama's lines? Yes. But Vivek, I want to start seeing our friend Jay Kennedy says the same thing. I want to start seeing an intelligent president being up there talking. When I was first getting really into politics, we had George Bush, and he didn't know how to talk either. And then we had Obama. Obama was great at talking, very well spoken. But then we got to Trump. Trump is he's good with one-liners and zingers. He is a very witty person. So it was fun. But now we got bumbling Joe Biden that can't even complete a speech without a couple snippets that we're all going to make fun of. There is snippets of Trump bumbling and messing up, but there's far more of Joe Biden than there is of Trump. Let's see here. I think actually Ron and Vivek are doing well. Donut Man and Bird Brain can go home now. I agree. I really think this is why Trump should just be there. If Trump is there, those two don't even show up. Nikki and Chris Christie wouldn't even shown up. And I agree with this because I believe Obama is corrupt. Now, people say Vivek is corrupt. There's not any evidence of it. It's just a bunch of social media garbage. I think Vivek has a lot of really good ideas. I love how he wants to shut down all the alphabet agencies. I like how he has just a different stance and he wants to take things. I know Vivek doesn't have a chance to win this year in 2024. I think he's setting himself up for 2028, potentially to be VP for 2024, then run for president and being president for 2 terms, following being VP for 1 term. That'd be pretty cool. It'd be really cool. Seen Judge Joe Brown talk about Obama? I have not. I know who Judge Joe Brown is, but I have not heard him talk about Obama. No way he takes VP. I get why you say that. I do. Because he's a strong personality, so he'd have to take number 2. He strongly speaks right now he's not going to take number 2, but you're never going to say that until you are bowing out. And that's where you're going to always say, we're going to become president. We're going to become president. We're going to win. And you're going to live that until you get to that final point to where you're not the nominee and then change of plans, right? But in the back of his mind, he knows. And he's telling his campaign, we're going to win. Because if you start planting the seed of second place, you're always going to be a loser in life. Always. If you're always setting up a plan B. Always, always, always. There's times you got to burn the boat and just go all in. Go for first place, right? And that's Vivek's personality to me. Look it up. He was on a recent podcast. I will look that up. I'm about the border and our military and our greatness to rule the world as our right for winning the wars. Agreed. 100%. I am 100% in that same boat. So, in your opinion, who represents that for you? Out of who's running, or who would you like to have running that represents that for you? I would like to know. Let's see. Vivek would make a good VP, I believe. I agree. I don't disagree with you. Not enough focus on the border. Agreed. But I think everybody on that stage agrees that the border is an issue. So why is that a whole lot other than make sure it's a talking point every once in a while? Because I think all four of them agree the border is a disaster and our number one issue we need to address right now. Not Israel, Hamas, not Ukraine, Russia. They're back. Let me get this back up.
So we're going to give you 45 seconds for this last one. Governor Christie, we're going to start with you. Which former president would you draw inspiration from for your own presidency, and why?
I would draw inspiration from Ronald Reagan. In the last year, I've spent a lot of time writing a book about President Reagan that's going to be called What Would Reagan Do? That book's going to come out early in 2024. And what I learned more than anything else was
Reagan was far superior to Christie.
Truth. Ronald Reagan stood up for the truth, whether it was popular or unpopular at the moment. In 1964, he stood up against the John Birch Society when it was very unpopular to the party to do it, but he would not put up with our party standing for lies and deceit, even it gave him political progress. That's the kind of president that I will be, and I would draw that inspiration from the 40th president of the United States, Ronald Reagan.
Ambassador Haley?
Well, I have to say, too, I think George Washington, when you look at the responsibilities he had of how do you go and take on this great American experiment and make sure that the people are protected. And they always knew that government was intended to secure the rights and freedoms of the people. It was never meant to be all things to all people. And then you look at Abraham Lincoln and you look at the challenges and you look at the division that happened in our country and the ability to lead in spite of the loud noises and say, what will bring out the best in people to get us to go forward is always something that's important. And I think we need that now more than ever.
Governor DeSantis.
Reagan, Washington, Lincoln, excellent. One of the guys I'll take inspiration from is Calvin Coolidge. Now, people don't talk about him a lot. He's one of the few presidents that got almost everything right. He understood the proper role of the federal government under the Constitution. We need to restore the U.S. Constitution as the centerpiece of our national life. And that requires a president who understands the original understanding of the Constitution, who has a good sense of the Bill of Rights, and who knows how we've gone off track with this massive fourth branch of government, this administrative state, which is imposing its will on us and is being weaponized against us. So Silent Cal knew the proper role of the federal government. The country was in great shape when he was president of the United States, and we can learn an awful lot from Calvin Coolidge.
Over to you, Mr. Ramaswamy.
Yeah, that is actually a very solid answer.
Sure. Well, I will say Ron picked a president who was born on July 4th. I'll pick one who died on July 4th. It's Thomas Jefferson.
My favorite president.
He was 33 years old when he wrote the Declaration of Independence. And you all are sitting on a swivel chair today. He invented the swivel chair while he was at it, while writing that Declaration of Independence. That's that founding spirit that we miss, that we're the pioneers, we're the explorers, the guy who sent them out on the Lewis and Clark expeditions. And I think a lot about what would Thomas Jefferson say to today's Republican Party. And I think one thing he'd remind us of, we haven't talked about it as much tonight, but I think it is one of the interesting ideological discussions we're having in our party is freedom of speech. You get to express your mind freely, no matter how heinous the opinion. Thomas Jefferson understood that.
All right,
He's an inspiration for me.
Thank you, Mr. Ramaswamy. And believe it or not, it's time for closing statements.
Here we go,
Governor
guys.
Christie, would you like to begin?
Sure, thank you. I want you all to kind of picture in your minds Election Day. You'll all be heading to the polls to vote.
Get
and that's something
donuts.
that Donald Trump will not be able to do because he will be convicted of felonies before then. His right
Boo.
to vote will be taken away. You know, look, here's the bottom line. You can boo about it all you like and continue to deny reality. But if we deny reality as a party, we're going to have 4 more years of Joe Biden. When my colleagues here raised their hands and said they would support him, even if he was a convicted felon, the bigger problem with it is they were confirming the lies he's told to the American people. If you're too timid to take on Trump, believe me, others will see that timidity. Xi, Putin, and the Ayatollah, the border crossers on the southern border, and the criminals in our streets. They'll sense that timidity, and they'll take advantage of that failure of leadership. We need to get back to an old American idea that every person is responsible for their own conduct, even a president. I'll be the kind of president who has the humility that knows that you work for the people. It's not the other way around. I will earn your trust. I want to earn your vote.
Thank you, Governor Christie.
I will earn your dinner.
I'll use this to just address a topic we didn't talk about tonight, but I think is one of the most important topics that needs to be discussed. That is this climate change agenda that is shackling this country like a set of handcuffs. I said at the first debate, and I stand by it. The climate change agenda is a hoax because it has nothing to do with the climate. That's what we have to see. 98% reduction in the climate disaster-related deaths in the last century. 8 times as many people are going to die of cold temperatures this year than warm ones. Yet against that backdrop, there's an issue coming up in Iowa. It's core to Iowa farmers. I met Kim Junker, Kathy Stockdale, and other farmers who are about to have a carbon capture pipeline built across their land using eminent domain to do it. That's unconstitutional and it's wrong. And if you thought COVID was bad, what's coming with this climate agenda is far worse. We should not be bending the knee to this new religion. That is what it is. It is a substitute for a modern religion. We are flogging ourselves and losing our modern way of life, bowing to this new god of climate, and that will end on my watch. It's the most critical issue that's coming up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our country is in chaos. We see it on the southern border. We see it on our streets in our cities. We see it on college campuses. We feel it with our economy, with inflation and with debt. And we feel it around the world with wars in Europe and within the Middle East. We have to stop the chaos, but you can't defeat Democrat chaos with Republican chaos. And that's what Donald Trump gives us. My approach is different. No drama, no vendettas, no whining. I envision an America where we're protected from illegal immigration and Chinese infiltration. I envision an America where we unleash our economy and we reject socialism. But more importantly, I envision an America where we rediscover our national purpose and our pride.
Thank you.
I crushed Joe Biden in the polls. And if you give me this chance, we will crush him in November and take our country back.
Governor.
Go to Nikki
Thank you, Ambassador Haley. Governor DeSantis.
We are in jeopardy of being the first generation of Americans to leave to our kids and grandkids in America less prosperous and less free than the one we inherited. I refuse to sit idly by and let that happen. But we got to have people that are going to be willing to fight the people that are doing this to us. You can't be these establishment Republicans that just cave at the first sign of opposition. I'll fight for you. We also need to win again as a party. Yes, win the election, which we've struggled to do, but also win on these big issues. And nobody has defeated these people more than what I have done in the state of Florida on issue after issue. We have won, and we have won big, and that's what we'll do for you. We also need leadership. Leadership is not about doing what's easy. It's about being willing to set out that vision, knowing they're going to shoot arrows at you. They're going to come at you. I will fight the good fight. I will keep the faith, and I will finish the race. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, all of you. Thanks to all of you. Thanks for watching. Thank you, guys.
All right, we're going to pull this down. One thing I'm going to point out real quick before we jump into anything else. I don't like all the closing arguments. They were all weak, long-winded, not to any point. Even Vivek, I felt, could have been better. None of them said, God bless America or God bless. And DeSantis tried to get it in at the end, but they were so long-winded They didn't recognize the country that they're trying to run and represent. They were selfish. That is one thing that just bothered me with those closing statements. They were more focused on them than representing this country. That is one thing that really bothered me, even with Vivek. Everybody knows I'm a Vivek fan right now. I think he's doing probably one of the best. He's not going to win, but he's setting himself up for a decent position with Trump if he wants it. But they didn't have a good closing argument right there. Not one of them. They are running for themselves. I don't like it. Other stuff that they said, there was some good things. We heard some great things. I want to hear from you guys. What was the best thing you guys heard tonight? Do you remember? The best thing I heard tonight was Vivek telling Chris Christie to get off the stage and go eat a meal. I think that was hilarious. When it comes to factual statements, I think Vivek wiped the floor with all of them. When it came to Chris Christie, he's probably going to bow out next time. I don't think he holds a candle in this anymore. Nikki Haley's dropped some points, even though she had a bunch of people in that crowd supporting her. Someone commented in here that they were trying to give away a bunch of free tickets by Nikki Haley. And I think that's the only way that she was growing in the polls is the crowd in the background. But if you notice, that crowd in the background was only loud when it was her, but they are very biased. Very biased. They were not there with an open mind. Biden says God bless America all the time, but he doesn't mean it. I agree. But that is one thing I still respect and I expect out of leaders' mouths when they are closing their statements is to bless the God bless America. I do expect that. It's an honor for their position to acknowledge that, and they should be acknowledging it, and they're not. I don't like it. But Vivek at least spoke about protecting Americans from overreach. Yeah, and to be fair, Vivek doesn't have a track record of doing it. DeSantis does. The other two do not. Chris Christie does not have a track record of fighting against federal overreach. He caves all the time. Nikki Haley is all for federal overreach. She is all about control. So, yeah, I like Vivek's position on a lot of it, but I honestly, you have to put him into a position to where you can start seeing if he's going to do it. And I think I still think he's the most solid candidate, including Trump, for 2024 for America. But it's going to be hard. It's hard to convince Americans to go against, well, a bunch of the very strong, loyal Trump fans. And so I get it. I understand it. Trump did great, but Trump did do some bad things. Chris Christie called it out. The tariffs on China, bad idea. Trump did ban bump stocks. Bad idea. Trump did a lot of stuff with COVID that he shouldn't have done. And he still won't admit that he shouldn't have done some of those things. He ignores those questions. So yes, Trump does have mud on his face. And that is why I want him on that stage too. He's got to answer some of those. He really does. He's got to hear about it. Now, the gag order is not going to be an issue. Vivek will defend him. I even think DeSantis will even defend him at this point. But he needs to be up there and address like America and be like, hey, look, COVID, I was misled. I trusted the people that I had around me and I was misled. I won't do it again. That's all you need to hear. That's all you need to hear. And I just don't know. But overall, I think the debate was good. Trump's got to show up to the next one because I think we're down to 2. I don't know if we're gonna have we might have Nikki Haley hanging around, but Chris Christie is done. Done. He is absolute done. Well, let's look at your comments here. Closing statements were super short. Yeah, I feel like they were. But they know what time. They are told how long they have before the debate starts. So they know, and they prep for that ahead of time. And clearly you see where their priorities were in that closing statement. And the thank yous while others were speaking got on my nerves. The thank yous while others were speaking got on my nerves. I don't get that one, Barbara. It sounded like they were cheering for most of them, but Donut Man got a lot of boos. Yeah. Well, and when he's saying Trump's going to get a felony and he's not going to be able to vote, like that is stupid for him to even say that. Trump's not going to get a felony. None of that's even working in the courts. It's all falling apart. Even in one of the fraud cases I got to go look up for election fraud, even in one of those cases, that one of the judges said, yeah, there's clearly an issue. And so I got to go and look up what is coming from that, but it may be minor, but still there's an issue. We got to acknowledge that. What happened to the days of letting people finish their sentence before trying to shut them down? It's because everybody's getting impassionate in politics today. It's the same thing, Barbara, you know about Be the Change. Like we all get passionate at times, but we also got to be respectful of other people's views and other people's opinions. And right now we're letting this passion of if you don't agree with the Democrats, then you're a Republican. If you don't agree with the Republicans, then you're Democrat. Like I fall into that category and get accused of being a liberal or a Republican or all the time, or even Rhino, because I have a lot more of a central view, anti-big government, get out of my life, and than others. I don't vote by party. And so that's where a lot of this comes from, is people just get too passionate, way too passionate. If they would talk about the mud instead of his ego, I could be with the Trump dumping, but they talk about his ego and that BS. His ego is kind of an issue. I don't disagree, but is it an issue that it's going to stop me from talking about him? No, because I think in this day and age right now, you need to have some confidence and a little bit of an ego. I think you need to have a little bit of it. And so that's where I let that go. But they're jealous because they don't have that confidence in that stage, because they still have to cater to their donors. That's where that difference comes in. It looks like a lot of people are jumping off, so we'll wrap it up here. The mods thanking the candidates while to shutting them. Oh, they're trying to be polite. But honestly, they need to be more firm. They really need to learn how to control a debate. And I really think we should have Joe Rogan, Elon Musk, and who else? Because Vivek threw out the idea, and it was genius. But having real people moderate these debates, not major new media agencies. Like all the mainstream media needs to be stopped. We really should have real people moderate these debates. Joe Rogan should be moderating these debates. Elon Musk should moderate the debates. I think that'd be hilarious. We got to start having real people. Tucker. Yeah, Tucker. Thank you. Tucker. Patrick Bet David. Yes. Patrick Bet David, my problem is I think he's more business, so he can speak to that, but I don't know if he's going to get into the foreign stuff as much. But I'm still open to it because he would still have some solid questions. But we'll wrap it up here, guys. Have a good night. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I was sitting around and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to watch it anyways. Why not join with you guys and we'll have a conversation about it. But hope you guys enjoyed. We'll have some stuff. Also, be on the lookout, wakenotwokestore.com. We have new Cash shirts up. All of the profits from those Cash shirts go to Cash and his family. Pray for Cash. Hopefully he's going to be getting out soon. There could be some good news coming very soon, but keep him in your prayers. Have a great night. We'll talk to you guys later.